getting back to the topic at hand, or transitioning into a related one, have you watched this anti-open office or anti-open source ad that's Jordan?
Yeah, a couple of times, yeah.
Are we going to start seeing more ads like this? Is this the future? Is this what's going to come this decade? You know, now that open source is now that people have gotten out of their... For years, open source was overcoming the mentality of if it's free, it can't possibly be any good. And now it's largely overcome that. Are we honestly looking at for this year, like... old business style like Microsoft and Adobe and Apple and are going to be saying no, don't use that, it sucks, because we say so.
The look and feel of this new ad is not only is it's not good because it's free, it's actually because it's free it's going to cost you money, which doesn't make any sense, but okay.
Well, and you know, what they're implying there is that you get free support if you buy Microsoft Office. I don't know about the rest of you, but have you ever been able to get your quote-unquote free support calls out of the Microsoft Corporation? I'm just saying. It costs you $50 to $250 every time you call them, whether you want it to or not. That's like...
Actually, in my Friday video last week, I talked about this video, and one of the commenters went on and on about how we need to put down our pitchforks and just deal with the fact that Microsoft has developed dedicated teams of developers specifically for large corporations, and that's who this was targeting, was the large corporations that are thinking of going to open office. Last time I checked, don't get me wrong, I don't know 100%, but I work for a relatively large organization, the state of Kentucky, and we can't get a hold of Microsoft for anything other than giving them money.
Well, no, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's the way it works
for just about everything. If you give us enough money, yeah, we'll do whatever you want, but open your wallet and
yeah, no, it's like they're saying it costs. I personally, I'd rather pay an in-house tech than give Microsoft stuff, because what it is, every time you call Microsoft to go, hey, your product isn't working like it's supposed to, their goal is to get you to sign up for a support subscription, which, depending on the product, can be as much as $5,000, if not more in some cases, because they want to sell you that platinum level, you know, incident thing, yada yada, and so forth, and that is their goal. Their goal is to sell you that. So it's. You know, supposedly when you buy a Microsoft product, you have, depending on the product, 1 to 2 free incidents. And they will figure every way they can not to give them to you. Something as simple as, okay, yes, you've launched your thing, I see it's working now, so I hang up on you, and they didn't fix the problem, but that's one of your incidents. Gone. It's like they go out of their way. Their whole goal is to sign. And I know what they're saying about the Linux pitchforks. That was part of why when we talked about this on, you know, the platform show, I was very quick to point out, no, open office is not always best. You should not send open office in to do a job it isn't qualified to do. It's like, but it's the thing that rubs me so wrong about the Microsoft Office suite is the fact that it insists on doing things that make it hard to work with anything but the latest Microsoft Office suite. Even WordPerfect doesn't do that. It's like...
Well, and that, honestly, the majority of that bashing ad that they put out was, we were using Microsoft Office, we switched to OpenOffice, and because OpenOffice was not 100% compatible with our newest versions of Microsoft Office, we had to pay to come back. Something to that effect.
Yeah, I guess.
I was actually talking about that on PC versus Mac, about most of their points are the fact that OpenOffice is worse because it's not Microsoft Office. Which is a horrible point to make, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason most people who are using OpenOffice switch to OpenOffice.
And in the same vein, that's kind of the reason a lot of people that switch to Linux and then switch back complain about it, is because it's not Windows.
Yeah,
Because their hardware and their software is Linux, is Windows only, and it doesn't support running MSN Messenger version whatever, Windows Live Messenger or something.
Oh yeah, well, and my response is always, well, why don't you call Microsoft and ask them why they're anti-Linux? It's like, and it's always like, honestly, because of the number of things I deal with, if they made them for Linux, I would buy WordPerfect, Microsoft Office, the Adobe Creative Suite. There's a lot of very expensive applications. If they made a native Linux version, I'd buy them. I'd buy them because they'd be worth buying. It's the other problem I find, why we're on the comparing OpenOffice, Microsoft Office, WordPerfect, yada yada and so forth. This is not a problem so much in OpenOffice and WordPerfect. But this is something that is a problem big time in Microsoft Office. I know a very predominant law firm, who I'm not going to name, but they recently, as in the last 18 months to 2 years, transitioned from using WordPerfect only to a very old version of Microsoft Office. Because if they were to go out and buy Microsoft Office 2010, they wouldn't be able to get anything done because they go, where did this go? Where did that go? This is one of the things that I've never understood about the Microsoft Office experiences. From version to version, they progressively move stuff. And you have no idea where it's moved, and you have to figure it out, and it's basically we have to wean you and step by step. But good luck getting anything but the latest version of Microsoft Office out of Microsoft. It's like they don't want to let people go in steps. So it's like you must jump to the latest and greatest, or the latest and greatest is best for you or not. I know a number of Microsoft Office users that have committed to never upgrading their Office suite for the rest of their life because they missed too many upgrades. And they're small to medium business, so they're not those ultra corporate customers that can get Microsoft to give them a version of Office they don't sell anymore, so they can make the transition to be a good long client. And they're like, we can't do it. If it's too much of a culture shock, I can't jump. And I've never understood that. Any thoughts on that one way or the other, or? I think I'm kind of getting off into Microsoft Office land here. Or
No particular thoughts at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while we're on Open Office,
I would like to say that I agree with you that I would buy a lot of this stuff if it would make for Linux.
Yeah, it's like that's one of the things I don't understand. Why if you join suddenly if you're on Tux, your money's not good. Well, I
mean, Linux is a huge threat. They don't want it to exist. They have a reason to hate it. I mean, they're a business, so they don't want Linux to have the competition because Linux, I believe, is a particularly hard kind of competition to fight because once it gets to a certain point, since it's free, it can grow a lot faster than anything that's paid.
In theory, it's been 25 years. It's like...
In theory, right. But the thing is that they have a lot of incentive to not let it get to a point where it could potentially grow to that. It is in theory, right?
Well, but okay.
Linux has gone to where I feel that point where
the only things I'm seeing, like you're saying, Linux being a threat to, because Linux is a kernel. Linux is a kernel. It's a core, and it's the coalition of a bunch of open source packages make an operating system. But really, the only thing desktop Linux is a threat to is Microsoft Windows and Apple's Mac OS X. I don't see how it's a threat to Microsoft Office or Adobe Photoshop or any of these things. And it's been a while since I've priced the retail price for the Office Suite, but the last time I priced like the retail price of the Office Suite, it was almost $1,000. I don't know if they've come off that and it's come down, but the Office Suite for a long time has been more than the Windows operating system on the retail side. So correct me if I'm wrong, but by that logic, I would think Microsoft actually makes more money off of the Office Suite than they do the Windows OS, especially since most of their sales of the Windows OS are $20 to $50 to OEMs and ODMs. Isn't there a more profitable product, the Office Suite?
Here's the thing. I think that, if I'm a company and I'm Microsoft and I don't want Linux to succeed, it's not just that Office would get hurt, because if Linux became popular, sure, they could still sell Office and they would still make a lot of money. But if I don't make Office for Linux, and I don't, and I don't make it compatible, and that makes the Linux experience less pleasant, and that's more reasons that I could say for people not to use Linux. And with the percent of people using Linux, maybe they don't think that they're going to make enough money off Office for it to be worth it versus what they could say if they can't use Office, making it less pleasant.
Well, see, I would argue the better way to nip that in the bud is a lesson that Adobe learned very well with Flash. And that, Ganache is almost a dead project. It's kind of a joke. It's not really getting a lot of development steam in it, and yada yada and so forth. What was figured out is if we opened up Flash enough that it could be ported over, there wouldn't be a need to develop a completely independent yada yada and so forth. If you want to stem the development of open alternatives and kind of slow their development so they don't become... Because eventually they're going to get to the same level you are, and then they'll surpass you. And then they'll really surpass you because of their open nature. If you want to compete with them, you make sure you're there side by side with them every slug of the way on all platforms, so that there's less incentive to do without you. They're kind of creating the need to run away from them more. Or am I living in a utopian world or something?
Well, you are right in the sense of Microsoft Office. As in, this does, in a sense, hurt Microsoft Office because people are running away from Microsoft Office on Linux and developing for other stuff like LibreOffice and everything else. However, Adobe does not make an operating system. They can only get helped once they can make enough money from it by developing for every possible people.
Strangely enough, they still don't make a Linux version of Photoshop and the rest of their Creative Suite.
And that could be for plenty of reasons. Maybe they don't find it profitable. Maybe there's something that we're not knowing.
But Jordan, you look like you had something to say there.
It's a shame, but that's one of those things that it may never even happen. Adobe.
Here's what I honestly see happening, and this is kind of an example of what I'm talking about. I see around the time that things like GIMP have evolved to the point that they begin to become on par with things like Elements, is around the time Adobe will go, maybe we should make a Linux version. And at that point, the ship will have sailed. We won't really be interested because we'll have an...
Isn't that sort of what happened with for Linux?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if they wait till that point, we don't need them anymore.